we have to realize that the cavalry is not coming over the ridge. No one's going to come and save us. It's not going to be easy. It's up to us. It's up to us. It's up to us. It's up to us.
podcast, and with me I have a new co-host, not so. Everyone knows who I am, but could mind introducing yourself?
Hello. And I am a conservative traditionalist monarchist, and I am totally not the racist, edgy fuck that you're going to see around these places.
Yeah, that's gay and
Yeah.
bold, but
Yeah,
alright,
I agree on that part.
first guest has come in, Boomer Ted Cruz.
Oh,
Mute yourself
hello.
till the 1 hour mark, okay? Good. So
Thank you.
the topic at hand is how the dissident right has failed. And we're going to start out with the introduction of the topic. So, the dissident rights, I think, that includes the new right, the alt-right, NRX, etc., especially the alt-right, has failed significantly and hasn't really gotten anything noteworthy done. They haven't ran any politicians on that platform who've won or even gotten close to winning. They can't seem to grasp the idea that, optics and marketing matter. And they can't seem to grasp the idea that the majority of the population doesn't share their views and won't unless they properly market them and make them appear not as extremists. So, first point I'm going to get to, I was in the alt-right. I'm not in the alt-right anymore, but I was in it back in like 2015, 2016, and back then, the alt-right was more of a neo-reactionaries plus paleocons. Now it's such a friggin' clusterfuck that I don't even know how to describe it. You have so many different groups, and it's not nearly as good as it used to be. Back then, pretty much everybody was productive. Now everyone was a producer of content. Now everyone's a consumer of content. So, not so. How long have you, I haven't asked this before, how long have you been on the online reactosphere?
Probably about 3 years at this point. Politically active.
Yeah, I've been on it for like 4 years, but for 2 years, it's only been 2 years that I've been a reactionary. I used to be more of a libertarian, but if you compare the alt-rights in 2015, 2016, this is before Trump got elected, and you compare it to what it is now, the alt-right back then was way, way better. I mean, the people were more likable. You got Walt Bismarck, who his channel got shut down like recently. It was kind of a shame. He started a podcast, and a day after it happened, he just got silenced. But you had Walt Bismarck. You had I forget who else. American Renaissance. I think the Golden One. And now you have so many people in it. It's no longer become edgy or thought provoking.
It's no longer a coherent group. I also find you have you have your conservatives who want to get out of the European Union, who want to, tread your own path, build the wall, that kind of just hardline conservative ideology. And then you have neo-fascists, and you have all kinds of...
Most of the fascists aren't even fascists. They're like... I mean, I guess you could call them Nat socks, but most of the fascists don't really prescribe the fascist principles. There are some, like, for example, have you heard of Cato's speech?
No.
Well, he's a Austrian dude. He's a clerical fascist. He's kind of also a monarchist. I'm surprised you don't know him, but basically, he's one of the few people who describe themselves as fasci and actually lives up to it. And most of these people are just racist liberals. They don't promote, a lot of these people don't promote any form of traditionalism or, traditional relationships, traditional religion, traditional sex life at all. Like, look at JF. I know this is going to get me a lot of shit, but I think JF is a horrible role model, and he should not be nearly as popular as he is. They've kind of made... The people in his fan base have made a cult of personality around him. It's kind of annoying. Any criticism of him gets, I don't know, you get, like, a horde of people knocking on your doorstep. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. And, calling you, like, you're a traitor, man. You're betraying the movement.
But back to the point, you have traditional conservatives, you have people who describe neo-fascist, you have people who are just anti-left-wing, anti-Antifa and feminism and all that new age far left ideology, and you have too many groups that are describing themselves or being described as alt-right, and they cannot get anything done because they cannot agree on anything. When Charlottesville happened, you had people marching together, and then you had one horrible racist dude ran someone over, and the whole thing is, oh, it's all a bunch of Nazis.
When really most of these people aren't. Like, you look at people like James Alsop, Faith Goldie. These people aren't Natsocks. I'll admit there are a couple.
No.
There are a couple. Fed tier Natsocks. Post who Fed post. You know what Fed posting is, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't. They do it, but they do it unironically, and I'm like, are you schizophrenic or something? How old are you? And are you a member of the CIA or FBI, or are any of your relatives part of that?
Yeah, I mean, to openly be Natsock is inviting police to come and knocking.
Yeah, and what's funny is that in a lot of these groups, you have a lot of people who, either have, like, suspicious ties to, the, certain intelligence agencies, or friends of people, like Richard Spencer. He, I think I saw a photo, it might be fake, but I don't believe it's fake, of him with the Bush family.
Oh, yikes.
And, I don't know, it's, like, not all, I guess, in some fringe groups, it's, you're predisposed to having people either infiltrate it or being entirely made up of, feds.
And would you consider European populist parties as part of this dissident right, or?
Not, okay, there's this guy from the Netherlands, the Forum van Democratie. He, not Geert Wilders, Theory Bided or something. I don't want to pronounce Dutch names. He's actually dissident right. He's, has a mainstream political party. He, met with Jared Taylor at one point, so that tells you all you need to know. Who else? I guess maybe Salvini. Oh shit, yeah. According to Boomer Ted Cruz, Richard Spencer was confirmed taking a picture of Laura Bush, and as we don't know the context behind that, but I'm not surprised, to be honest. He's a millionaire who literally inherited his parents' fortune, and he's now kind of wasting it. I mean, if you're a millionaire, how about you just start funding people to run for Congress or something, or make donations? Don't just have a freaking
don't just talk for no reason.
Yeah,
you're not going to.
Don't have a think tank that won't get shit done. Let's see. Let's look at the schedule. So one more thing. So I've looked at the issue with the main issue of the alt-right, dissident right, whatever, is that it's gotten complacent. I predict that within a year there's going to be a movement that there's going to be a split off of the reactionaries. The reactionaries are going to split off from that movement, and they're probably going to form their own little movement. I mean, I don't think NRX is ever going to come back, and I don't think it should come back, because that's kind of LARPy. But, it's gotten too big for its own good, gotten too mainstream, and because of the fact that it's gotten mainstream, well, not like politically mainstream, but it's big enough that it's inviting people who would be rejected earlier, like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, let's look at the spergy fanbases of the dissident right. Got it. And there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I was about to say there are many.
Let's look at some examples. The pagans. Hey man, Jesus was a Jew. You can't worship that. That's not European. And they're like, not all these people are like Nordic pagans, but most of them are. I'm like, listen, Europe hasn't really been pagan for,
for 1,000 years
and
at this point.
like Southern Europe for like well over 1,500.
Yeah.
So I get it. You're trying to honor. How about instead of honoring your ancestors from millennia long gone? How about you just honor your ancestors from a couple generations ago? Heck, like 20 generations. It would right. Yeah, way more than that. Like 40 generations of people who were most likely Christian. Probably 50.
Yeah.
Paganism isn't going to come back, and people think it will come back. Are deluded. And we have like another Sperky fan base is more centered around a political figure. JF, Jean Francois Scariati. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. If anyone wants to know how Sperky they are, go into the Discord, jfg.world, and say something that Rano, say something like, I'm not fond of accelerationism. I'll get to that. I'll get to accelerationism later, but say something like that, and immediately 5 or 6 people who are always in that chat 24/7 will like pound you. They'll jump on top of you and just try to like explain to you why you're wrong. And they've gotten so it's gotten so dogmatic. We aren't really a movement that discusses ideas anymore. We've become hard set in a particular belief system, and some people who are a bit outside of that but are still ethno-nationalists, they are shunned. Oh yeah, you're the mic bobbing.
Oh, is it still going on?
Yeah.
Ay.
I don't know. Is it like your speakers or something, or?
Like I hear something that sounds like a propeller airplane in my headphones, but I don't know why you'd hear that over the mic.
Let me think. Let me think of another Sperky fan base. Let me name all of them. You have the JF's crew. Let me think of another one. What is it? Not Richard Spencer. I've already talked enough about him. I guess we can replace fan bases with subcultures. So, I guess, some of the Natsocks are like, hey man, screw ethics. Ethics make you weak. If you're not slaughtering your enemies, you're weak. And I'm like, first of all, you're not doing that either. You're not going out slaughtering people you hate. You don't. So don't tell me that I'm a wimp for having a certain code of ethics when in my quest to save Europe from demographic destruction.
You know what? The Natsocks, I don't care if they get locked up. Maybe they'll learn a bit how to behave if they do.
I mean, fine. There's some. I know one Natsock who isn't really all that Sperky, but I guess there's a lot of Fed tier types that don't really it's not they don't know how to behave, it's that they don't know how to they don't realize that every single post they make on the internet is like being monitored and tracked, and they don't know how to circumnavigate the law, so they decide, screw it, I don't care if I get arrested. I mean, I'm not saying we should be arresting people for any form of speech. Okay, maybe communist, we can arrest them, but they should expect scrutiny. They should expect that if they don't use, their optics aren't good, then they are gonna, especially in Europe, people are gonna start knocking on their door. Federal agents, and they're gonna we're gonna arrest them.
Yeah, well, I mean, German law is you cannot openly promote National Socialism, use swastikas, use, right arm, with that.
In Austria.
Austria as well.
I heard that in Austria, there's you cannot really have a party that's against the system of democracy. And, that's another big issue I have with the, modern political system. Any criticism of democracy, and you're looked at as if you're a kook.
Democracy is totally not the right way to govern. Like, I will get that straight out.
I mean, yeah.
People are idiots. People are overly partisan. People, especially in America, you have people that vote straight down the ticket. Democrat, 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 or Republican, Republican, Republican. Just, flip the switches on the vote machine without even looking at their ideology.
Yeah, my biggest issue with democracy is that it doesn't believe in the objective truth. Nothing is democracy. It's against the democratic system for truth to be objective. It enables disagreement. It promotes it. They promote the process of disagreeing. They don't believe anything is objectively true. The only thing they believe is true is what the people believe is true, which usually isn't true. If it's like, even if a policy is terrible, the majority of people support it, then it must be upheld. And usually, there's often policies that the majority of people do support that aren't promoted. Usually, I don't know, like immigration restrictions or, rescinding gun control. Those things are supported by a large amount of people, but they aren't. They usually politicians never carry it out. And Boomer Ted Cruz is back from the AFK channel.
Yeah, because, and in a parliamentary system like Germany, it's even worse because you don't vote directly for your leader, you vote for your party, who then select your leader if they have enough to form a coalition. And that is completely, if you're saying you're democratic, how is it fair to say at all that you do not get to pick your leader?
I'm not really fond of direct democracy either. Really, the system I tend to believe in is what do you call it? The Serene Republic of Venice?
Yes.
Something like that. It's kind of has an oligarchy, but the Doge is not. He's basically a monarch, albeit there are some limitations on what he can do, but he has more power. It's like, let's say Trump had a bit more power. I mean, he obviously couldn't just mass murder people, but he could make Trump. He probably has more power than the Doge. He can go to war without a legislator voting on it. But basically, it would be a more powerful executive. Maybe we wouldn't have a term system. He'd just serve for life, and there would be checks in place to make sure he doesn't just murder people. But
no. I will say that any of this democracy stuff is too reliant on the people to make the right decision. If you have a monarch, you can train them from birth in everything, related to politics and how to think and how to rule. And then you have someone who is well qualified for the job, and they are not beholden to partisan crap like you have in Europe and America today. And additionally, you have, maybe it's a representative, parliament that has limited power. Or another system that I find may work is having all the sons and daughters of the monarch, they all run against each other for whoever's the most qualified.
All right.
Systems like that may give some power to the people to check in case there is some problem with the monarch, but in general, the person is selected to rule.
Looks like we've been going faster than
we expected.
We need to get back onto the topic of spergy
fanbases. Yeah.
Boomer Ted Cruz.
I think. We went kind of into ideologies there.
Yeah, bit of an unintended detour, but Boomer Ted Cruz, you can unmute your mic and you can start talking.
Yeah. Hello. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on again. But I completely agree with you guys about the dissident right and not caring about optics at all. I feel like most of them just believe that they can post edgy memes and somehow get people into office because they thought that's exactly what got Trump into office.
It's really not.
I agree.
You know what? most of these people say there is no political solution. Like, just screw trying to, I mean, there might well be no political solution, but just try. They're not trying. They're not running anyone. They're not attempting to see if they'll ever get in. They're just like, and this is where I'm going to get into a later accelerationism. They're promoting voting for people like Andrew Yang because they believe the system is going to go to hell somehow, and we might as well get $1,000 in the process. They don't care anymore. If they were serious, I mean, they would have already gotten half a dozen people or more in office in Congress, in the House of Representatives, who at the very least would say something like, I don't know, abolish the Hart-Celler Act or repeal the Hughes Amendment. They're not going to get anyone in. They're not even trying. They're saying there's no point in trying. Fuck running for office. Just prepare for a collapse and go to some fringe militia, disregarding the fact that, I mean, how are you going to make money if you're part of a militia and people know it? You're probably most job companies probably won't hire you. Not that it's right, but I'm just being realistic. Going to like moving to Montana and starting your own little neighborhood's people are gonna find out, and you're probably gonna lose the company. You're gonna lose your job.
I totally agree, and I think a lot of this comes from they're not very principled. None of these people are very principled, and I agree with you when you say a lot of fascists and people in the alt-right, a lot of like dissident right people are really just liberals who are racist. They don't have traditional attitudes. They don't have traditional views. And they don't.
I will say there are some fascists, mostly people like, I have one who's on my recommended channel. It's Cato's Speech. He the fascists that usually are principled. Well, most people call themselves fascists really aren't. They're mostly Natsocks. What I'm thinking about is more of a clerical fascist. Fine. I mean, fine. If you want to restrict your state to a certain ethnic group, fine. If you want to have a state religion, fine. But the methods, it's all about the methods of doing so, and I'm talking to a lot of people. I used to be on a server called the Ethno server, and I was talking to some dude, and he was like, let's just exterminate everybody. Like, that's ever... I mean, I wouldn't support that. I mean, fine, mass deportation, fine. If you want to do mass deportation of legal immigrants, fine, do that. But murdering people, I just don't think I can accept that, even if the goal was alluring and a good one.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think that's comes from their no consideration for optics, because no one is going to support the mass murder of anybody. Even in the Nazis, it wasn't the citizens supporting the mass murder of the Jews. They supported the deportation of the Jews. They supported the Jews being removed from their neighborhoods, being kicked out of their country because they thought they were a threat to them. Nobody was out there and saying, not even Hitler himself in public was saying, yes, we're going to mass murder the Jews. It's not a good thing for optics. No one runs on mass murder as a campaign and wins.
Well, the thing is, nobody's run it on a campaign at all. They're not even trying. Well, even if they were like running on a campaign without optics, fine, you're gonna fail, but okay, you at least try. But they're not even running a campaign at all. They're just waiting for an economic collapse akin to the fall of Rome. And I keep hearing people say, we're like Rome, we're gonna fall soon. Rome started to decline with the death of Marcus Aurelius, which for literally 200 to 300 years, they were on a downward spiral with the crisis of the 3rd century, the split up of Rome, the barbarian invasions, the Huns, and then finally, when Romulus Augustulus was, by the time he was deposed, Rome had already collapsed. It had already gone to shit.
Yeah, we are. I do not think you're. And there is, they say, there's going to be, we're going to be a minority, but that's not going to anytime soon be a problem.
Oh, I prefer Europeans not be a minority in their own countries.
Oh, I agree fully, but I do not think we'll allow that to happen.
Yeah, well, assuming we win, that won't happen. But akin to the collapse of Rome, will happen within our lifetime. It will start to disravel. The collapse that we experience won't be nearly as bad as what our grandkids will.
Yeah.
It's going to. I mean, if you want to save the West, how about the United States is the easiest, even though it's the least white. And the reason why is because the federalist system. If you want to nullify every single bill every single bad immigration law, every single law in existence, like birthright citizenship and whatnot, you can do that. There literally, there's a. I can't tell if I'm quiet, but there's a law that's getting repealed in Missouri right now.
I heard about that.
Yeah, now it's pretty great. Boomer Dickers, you heard about it, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, basically they're going to nullify every federal gun control law in existence, and it already passed the House and Senate like several years ago, but they're redoing it this time with a Republican governor who endorsed that earlier. So if you want to get change done, run for state rep. Usually, you have to be there for like half the year. You can spend the other half working on a part-time job. In my state, they pay you well. They probably don't pay you well everywhere, but run for state rep. You'll make a bit of money off of it. It doesn't cost that much to get in. Not nearly as much as a congressman. And then,
yes.
And then you, let's say you can start nullifying shit. Like, how about we abolish the Hurt-Celler Act? Like, Missouri is literally abolishing the Hughes Amendment in their state, and people can own full autos. If that can happen, we can do anything. People just aren't willing to go out and do it.
But the thing is, how do they then prevent full autos from getting, say, well, I don't know American geography that well, but say to California? How do they stop full autos getting over there?
Well, the Hughes Amendment, basically what it was is you cannot buy new weapons that were made after 1986.
I know it is, but I mean, like, if Missouri nullifies it, you buy the gun in Missouri, and then drive.
They can't stop it.
They can try with the ATF, but that's about it.
But then you have the Fourth Amendment, which says you cannot search someone's car for illegal arms without a warrant.
Well, the thing is, they ignore that.
In California, they do.
I think what's going to happen is, if this happens, we're going to see other states do it. Like, for example, Ohio. I'm going to look up Ohio right now and look up the gun laws.
Yeah,
I would also believe states like Texas would also do the same. I was born and raised in Texas most of my life. I could see that happening there too.
So yeah, in Ohio they have a Republican supermajority in House and Senate, and they have a new governor who probably John Kasich. He nullified a standard ground law bill, and the Senate literally overturned his veto. They have a huge majority. And in Ohio, ATF, NFA weapons aren't restricted, so they can do the same thing as well. And that means if all the states where NFA weapons aren't restricted, if they use the same bill, then we're going to see a crap ton of states, manufacturing full autos and selling them, not for the price of a new car, but for, 1,000, maybe 1,500. And the feds can't do anything about it. So you can do the same thing in, birthright citizenship. If you're a anchor baby, you're not going to be able to vote.
Yeah, I think it's a great point to talk about states and state politics, because I think a lot of people, especially in the United States, kind of ignore their more local politics and their more local elections and kind of just only focus on federal because they assume that that's the most important. But really, the closer it is to your home, so local government is most likely the most important impact on your life, because that's what's going to directly affect you. And no one really runs in those elections. Like, for example, in my town, the town supervisor has ran the past 3 elections completely unopposed. And for those who don't know, town supervisor is basically just mayor for a smaller town. And then most of the council members have also ran unopposed in the past 3 elections. And they get to have a monopoly on all affairs in the city.
All right, I'm going to check out my mic. I hope it's good now.
It sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
People are saying the stream is quiet. Let me check this. I want to make sure this isn't the case. Oh. Maybe, okay, hopefully this works. Oh. All right, here we go. If you hear me now, hopefully this is better. I turned the gain up and I turned the audio limit up. But all right. So let's see. Let's look at some other stuff. Let's look at the timeline. Okay. Talking about solutions and acceleration, the failure of accelerationism. Accelerationism, on paper, it seems like a cool idea, but in reality, it's a really dumb one. Rome didn't fall in a day, and the United States won't fall in a day. I think if you want to, like, save the U.S., literally just make a nullification pact of different states saying we're not going... Like, I don't know, anchor babies or people who are amnestied won't be considered citizens and won't be able to vote. Just do it at the state level. Get a crap ton of states to do it. Republicans, let me check how many... They have, like, 20... They have about 20 trifectas. And a trifecta means the House, Senate, and governorship is Republican. And I get it, not all Republican trifectas are the same. Some people are Renos. Some people aren't willing to help us. They're not like... But some people, even if they're not, ethno-nationalists, I don't think there isn't really any ethno-nationalist governor. They are still willing to do stuff like, I don't know, end birthright citizenship. And let me look up... You can talk while I look up the list of Republican state trifectas.
Yeah. So we have, a very social, democratic, and centrist coalition going on.
The AFD has been excluded from it, right?
Oh, obviously. AFD is in no coalition. No one goes with them.
Yeah, speaking of coalitions and political parties, I actually know a really based teenager. He's in my grade. I'm friends with him. He goes to my school. He's openly supported the Golden Dawn. Because he's from Greece. Yeah, so, people are waking up. But, I'm looking at the state government trifectas, and literally, we've added, like, the Democrats gained 6 of them. Let's look at them. So, New York used to be, turned into a state trifecta. Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, let me check, and Maine. But, if you look at the states that have Republican trifecta, it's surprising because, Montana, Kansas, and Louisiana, all 3 of them have Democratic governors. And I'm like, how? Even though the legislator in each state is Republican. So, but if you look at these states that have them, it's Idaho, Utah, Arizona, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida.
That's a lot.
And Virginia, if the lieutenant governor loses in Virginia, then there's going to be a Republican trifecta there. Same thing.
Which you will lose after the whole KKK debacle.
Yeah, but you also have one in North Carolina. They have Governor Cooper. He's kind of a... And I think we might see the same thing in Louisiana and Montana. It's kind of weird. Like, how the hell... It's like Montana has a Democratic governor, but Massachusetts and Vermont have Republican governors. It's really freaking weird, and it doesn't behave like that at all in the federal election. Charlie Baker, he's a Democrat, he's a Republican, but he's not really a Republican. He's like one of those fiscally conservative and socially liberal people. He won in New Hampshire, or no, Massachusetts with like 65% of the vote as a Republican. Even though he's not really one, it's like, how does that work? How is it that in the presidential election it's the exact reverse?
Because I imagine they're very sexually open there or something. I do not understand how one can call themselves a conservative and say, you should all have sex with whoever the fuck you want.
Yeah, it's, anyway, let's look at the, okay, accelerationism. We have to go back to that. So yeah, nullification can work. But the failure of accelerationism is that I see a lot of people say, yeah, we're gonna have a civil war.
No, we're not going to.
Yeah, man, we're gonna have a civil war. We're gonna crush those libtards. Well, how come we haven't already? How come we haven't even planned You don't even have a plan. You just think the right's automatically going to win. The left, if there ever is something like that, the left is going to start drafting people, and they're going to send in UN troops. Like, European armies are going to come in to restore order. They don't really have a plan to win a civil war, although they probably, if they wanted to change the West really quickly, they would. I guess, some people have gotten complacent, and some people say, oh, alright, let's just rebel. Everyone's gonna wake up. It has to happen someday. I don't think people are gonna wake up. The only way you can really have change is if you, not saying you have to join the globalists, but you have to become a powerful political figure yourself, and carry out the change that yourself, again, even if the people don't want it. Like, it's called the Palpatine pill. The Palpatine pill, it's basically become a master of subterfuge and whatnot, and basically use the military and do your own little purge and whatnot, and become dictator for a while. Well, then give up, like Cincinnatus. And so it's kind of like, Palpatine, he was really good at manipulating the public, and he Republic. And he had the perfect scheme, and it was executed flawlessly to take out the Jedi and take out the Republic. We need someone like that. We need a George Soros-like mastermind who can do stuff that we can't, and has the connections that we don't. We need our own version of some of the globalists, and we need to infiltrate them ourselves.
I would like to say that that's a great name you have for that, but I somewhat agree that we definitely need to be using the system more to our advantage, instead of just saying the system is dumb, we don't like the system, so we're just going to let ourselves go into chaos, and we'll figure out the details once we're in the chaos. Because I think that's a really terrible way to look at it, and it's an extremely immoral position to hold, because you're basically letting your country go down the rabbit hole and go sink into chaos for your own convenience. Instead of trying to make your country better by using the system to your advantage.
There may not be a political solution, but these people haven't even tried, so they can't really make that statement. If they ran a bunch of people for office and they lost horribly, fine. But they haven't. They haven't tried that. They haven't experimented. They aren't willing to. They aren't willing to run for office themselves. I get it. If you're like I don't think Richard Spencer would ever win a run for office. But let's say
no.
but let's say you're running on a platform. Hey, let's end birthright citizenship, end chain migration, end the visa lottery, do unamnesty. If we can give people amnesty, let's undo that. Run with that. It may be hard to win, but you can win. But a lot of these people, I think, if you aren't openly running, an alt-right political podcast and everybody knows it, then just try to run yourself. And you can make some good money off of that, especially if you get into Congress and you get the pension for life.
Oh, I looked at the for example, from the left, DSA victories. I have a map, and this is before Alexandria.
Oh yeah, are you talking about Joe Crowley?
I'm talking about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 16 people won radical socialist seats in America before AOC
was this in the 1900s? Because I know some.
No, this was Democratic Socialists of America before AOC.
Yeah. Here's the idea. If I ever get into office, I ever run for Congress, I am going to start my own caucus. It's going to be called the Nationalist Caucus. And I'm probably going to get a lot of controversy if I were to do that. It'd probably be like, if I run for office, the first thing I'm going to do is put this is in jest, I'm not actually going to do it. Or maybe I will. I'm going to require the Oval Office have a painting of John McCain burning in hell.
Oh my god.
You don't like McCain?
Well, nobody likes McCain. There's never been a war that he hasn't liked.
Yes, this is pretty true. He's a very war dog person, or was a very war dog person. I tend not to talk too bad about McCain now that he's dead because I just think he's now kind of irrelevant to talk about. And I think one of the big mistakes of Trump's in the last few weeks is continuing to talk about John McCain after he's dead and poses no threat to him.
It's not that it's immoral or that he should be outraged. It's just that it doesn't help him.
Yeah, it really doesn't help him. It's just him talking shit about somebody who is no threat to him at the moment because he's kind of dead.
You know, maybe the ghost of John McCain will haunt him.
Who knows? But I think definitely that it's a very good idea for the right to start getting more politically active than they already are. Especially those on the more fringe right, the smaller right. Especially, you know, people in this Discord, the Right Cafe, and people who watch this, because you know you're not going to get anything done just waiting for a collapse to happen, because the collapse may not come, and if the collapse does come, you don't really have a plan for it. And I think if a collapse happens, you also have the threat of us moving too far to the left. I mean, there are people on the left who are also waiting for this collapse. We're also waiting for the United States to collapse so they can usher in their socialist utopia that they believe will exist.
Yeah, let's end all hierarchy. Let's end all tradition. Revolution, baby.
Yeah, that's about as likely to succeed as National Socialism succeeding. You know, that's just... Revolution is not what's going to happen today.
I totally agree.
I mean,
so, left wing or right wing or monarchist or whatever, you're not going to be in all freaking what's his name.
And I think what these people are doing by not running and getting more politically active is that they're letting the left wing win on running fringe candidates. I mean, we have people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez who are now in office. We have people like Ilhan Omar who are in office, and a bunch of other people who are planning to run and upseat like more moderate Democrats in the next election. And they are winning their seats, even though they're not super popular or super taking over the country. They're at least getting people out there. I like this map that you gave of Democratic Socialists of America and the seats that they have of people who are endorsed or members of the DSA, and this is even before Ocasio-Cortez came into office.
And look,
it's probably expanded since that election.
Oh, for sure. But look, almost every single one of them. House of Delegates, City Council, County Council, City Council, City Council, Legislative Council. I don't know what Board of Aldermen means. District Attorney, District Judge, you know. These smaller seats that don't have such, you know, opposition.
Yeah, that aren't going to get news coverage.
But they're making, you know, huge. In Hamden, in New Haven, in Somerville, in Philadelphia, these are the people that are going to be making policies there and shaping their counties and cities.
Mm-hmm. And I think we also have a problem with other, you know, fringe that aren't exactly fringe candidates, but they're not moderates anymore, and they're like starting to get there. You know, you have Beto O'Rourke, who almost defeated Ted Cruz, but I'll be honest, I think most of that is because Ted Cruz is just a very hated candidate and a very hated person. I think they did a poll on the most hated person in Senate, and I think Ted Cruz won that poll.
I thought it was Mitch. I thought Mitch McConnell would fit that.
No, Mitch McConnell is not nearly as hated as Ted Cruz, and I have no idea why so many people hate Ted Cruz. Like, I'm not a supporter of Ted Cruz, but I definitely don't think he's as terrible as many others in the Republican Party. I think Mitch McConnell is worse, honestly. I think Mitch McConnell is a huge detriment to the Republican Party at the moment. mostly because I do not care for neoconservatives at all, and I think they need to be ousted from the party.
Yes.
But yeah, you're not just going to see Franz Herzog von Bayern. You're not just going to see him, big monarchist party in Bavaria. All vote for him, and all of a sudden he's sitting at the top.
Well, yeah. And I consider myself more monarchist, and I'm very much in the Hoppian ethics realm. But even I will admit that I plan to run for Congress in the years coming, but I will even admit I won't campaign on a monarchist platform because you can't give that good optics in
And
our
also,
current system.
also it would be fucking stupid to do so.
Yeah, it would be counterintuitive.
Probably even more so in America than Europe.
Well, yeah, and anytime I have a discussion with anybody about anything monarchist related, it's immediately, if you say that you think monarchy is a good system of government, you're immediately, they say, what are you, un-American? It's just very hard.
Yeah,
because there's no tradition of monarchy. There's a tradition.
In Europe, you can say, we have Franz, we can get him over back in power, and he's the legitimate monarch of Bavaria.
France is kind of far. The French Revolution was a horrible thing, and I don't think France is ever going to come back. Maybe, well, who's his name? Macron will finally become the god he desires to be. He'll start rounding up the He'll start rounding up the Germans and all non-French people, and just kick them out, and then he'll start the third estate again. I mean, it's not going to happen, but one can hope. But I think it's kind of an issue when you're like, I don't believe in a democratic form of government, and you're like, what? So you believe in a dictatorship then? No. Okay, maybe, but not necessarily. And I'm like, what the fuck you mean, boy?
Yeah, monarchy does not have to mean absolute I am God monarchy.
Well, I'm not a monarchist, but yeah.
I know you're not, but if
I've seen a meme where it's like the virgin constitutional monarchist, the Chad, a divine right.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. And I think also another huge issue is, I think you mentioned it a little bit, Andrew Yang and the people who have come out to support Andrew Yang mostly because of accelerationism, but also I've talked to a lot of people who are friends who are also right wing as well, but they're not they're not part of the dissident right or the fringer groups of the right like us. But they're like, oh, I support Andrew Yang because he's like centrist. He's a lot of them have this wrong opinion that he's a moderate Democrat.
Holy shit!
And that because he has a harsh stance on immigration, he must be, moderate.
Listen, do they know how much UBI will freaking cost? $1,000.
I see. I explained.
Okay, 1,000 a month times 300 million.
Well, no, 253 million because you have all adults.
Yeah, so 250 million. That's 250,000 million. That's a lot.
And that's per month. That's just per month. And I've explained how bad UBI is to them.
It would cost
3 billion.
It would be 3.063 trillion.
So you're short scale 3.063 trillion. I was counting long scale. Sorry about that.
Do they?
And I'll explain this to them, and I'll say, and they agree that UBI is a bad idea, and then I'll say, well, they also support Medicare for all, and they'll say Medicare for all is also a bad idea, and then they say, but I think Andrew Yang would be the best to get stuff done and stop this gridlock. And as well, he's like, a big thing with us is we all don't support Israel. I personally am not the super anti-Israel gang where I'm like, get rid of Israel. I just don't want to support them any longer. But and they're like, oh, he's most definitely like a centrist because he has extreme right positions and he has extreme left positions.
That's
except for his extreme quote unquote right positions aren't even that extreme, and it's like 2 of them.
Yeah, Here's the idea. Here's an idea. How about instead of promoting Medicare for all, how about you just repeal Obamacare? Let health insurance companies compete across state lines. Cut the corporate tax rate for health insurance companies, cut the tax rate for middle class families. Because I don't think cutting it for corporations really does much. I mean, it probably does, but not like the upper. How about you do that, and then for everybody who does not have a health insurance is just given it, or is given money to buy it. Why do you have to give everybody on the system? Why don't you just give people who don't have it? Why do you have to make everybody follow some shitty plan where you can't even get private insurance, and you probably are going to mandate doctors, give abortions even if it's against their political belief. It will be a disaster. It would be.
That's how it already is.
Just give a public option. Why the hell do you need to ban private insurance? Most people get it from their employer. But anyway.
Well, and I mean, even in these countries that do Medicare for all, like Canada, they end up having like black market private insurance companies that people go to, and then also their own politicians will leave the country and go to the United States and get their services there.
In almost all of Europe, it's already socialized healthcare. It's already, like you say, it works, but it's...
Well, and it's also working on a smaller scale.
It's
not working on 300 million plus people. And
population of EU, 508 million.
Yeah.
I'm talking about each individual country has their own. The EU doesn't pay for everybody's system.
Here's the thing.
Yes.
Here's the thing. This.
But we also have far smaller GDP per.
So, socialized medicine can work if you're like if you have a large amount of resources and you don't have that many people, or you don't have that many people like the U.S. has. Like look at Libya under Gaddafi. They had so much oil and such a small population. Everybody got a friggin' free house, $80,000 for a kid, and a free car, and it was working. But the U.S. has too many people, even though the U.S. has more oil, but it has way more people, unless it can't afford to go full Huey Long and make everyone a man a king. You need to have a small population and a shit ton of money.
Well, and I would even argue, even then, not getting to the crux of, quality of healthcare. I think a big reason why healthcare costs so much in the United States is a big part of it is quality. And I think there are a lot of ways to decrease the cost of healthcare. There's a lot of things that can be done to do that. I think as well the insurance system is completely broken, because it's basically most people are using their insurance to pay for literally everything in their medical care, which drives cost.
But also, speaking of government intervention in the economy, net neutrality. Jesus Christ. I've seen a lot of people in the alt-right, say let's keep it. They're kind of like a dissent from the main monorail. But here's the thing, I had before net neutrality got passed, I had using wired Ethernet, using my motherboard's Ethernet cable, I got about maybe 100 megabits internet. Now while you're waiting, I'm gonna do a speed test, because I think I got a lot higher than that after it got abolished. And yeah, so
don't forget, it's not only based to that, because a lot of internet service, both in Europe and America, we are now doing fiber internet, which is, as fast as your cable will allow. It's usually a gigabit connection.
How much do you get?
I get 940 over 840.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that, but in America, that's like, if you have that speed in America, you're like, you're really lucky. There's a lot of places in the world, a lot of rural areas barely get like 20 or like 5. And here's the thing, before, I just got a network card yesterday, and I was finally able to utilize the full potential of my router, of my network. So let's see, my download speed is 860, upload is about, it's not finished yet, but it's like, it's around 800. And before I was getting like 80 and 5. So, if intervention in the market usually isn't a good thing. I mean, fine, I mean, there are some examples where it could be, like social media, you know, college campuses, especially private universities, but most of the time, government takeover or government stewardship over the market makes it less efficient.
Yeah, and I think that's mostly just because markets are like organisms that are unable to really track what's going to happen. There aren't super general trends that we can always count on happening within market. So it's a little hard to just it's a little hard for them to just plan out and account for these changes.
I've noticed a lot of people on the dissident right are starting to become like, okay, I believe in like the economic policies of, say, AOC, but I want to, but I'm socially conservative, or I want to ban immigration, so I'm obviously okay. No, I mean, fine, if you're fiscally left of center, like, I'm not talking about, like, like,
you're talking about, like, Keynesians. They're very Keynesian.
If you're talking, well, they're not even Keynesian, they're post-Keynesian. If you're like, okay, fine, I'm fine with a middle-class tax cut, but, maybe raise the rich's rate to, like, 50%. If they're that and socially conservative, fine, but these people are like, oh, I'm right-wing, but I support Medicare for all. I mean, Richard Spencer literally did, for Christ's sake. And,
they support a lot of left-wing policy, but they're very they call themselves socially conservative, but even then it's hard to call them socially conservative when
I support abortion if you're black, stuff like that.
And it's like they basically think you're totally socially conservative if you treat people of other races as non-human, whether or not you agree with the aspect that their IQs are naturally lower, and that they're not even if you think whites are superior, you still don't treat them non-human from a traditional aspect. I mean, a big thing about conservatism and being traditional is compassion towards others, and I think they lack that, because a lot of them are attempting to just be edgy because they think it's funny. They don't care about optics. They just think that their collapse is going to happen, and that they're going to lead their militia into the new age, into their utopia, which is exactly what the left thinks.
Here's the workers will rise. But what's funny is that the left doesn't really care about economics anymore. They're just socially progressive. The left doesn't, even if you're like Bernie Sanders, if you're like a Bernie Sanders person comes to like economics, if you have any socially conservative positions, they'll fucking kick you out. They're not, and this is why I think we're gonna see in the future some people who, like Steve Bannon, he promoted raising the income tax rate a marginal about like 44%, but he's not socially progressive at all. These union workers, the old guard Democrats have gotten abandoned by both parties. Anyway, in voice text chat, I posted my internet speed. Ever since net neutrality, this was like shortly after net neutrality got ended. Can you see it? It's still loading, but it's 947 download, 907 upload. Based and red-pilled. But, should we, I'm kind of getting a bit tired of politics. Let's talk about society, alright? And this was the original topic of the video. I wanted to get to it later. Maybe we could do it till like 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's the decline in the value, thought-provokingness, and quality of media. And, you can agree with me that the media or like everything we consume has been dumbed down, right?
I would totally agree.
So here's a perfect example. The Elder Scrolls series, or pretty much Bethesda in general. If you look at Daggerfall, let's look at all the features it has that Skyrim doesn't. Okay, you can have a guild in every single big town has a guild. There's not just one guild per city, which is kind of silly. Like the Mages Guild, which is supposed to, regulate the use of magic, is only present in one city, and it's not even the Mages Guild; it's the College of Winterhold. Meanwhile, in Daggerfall, like every big town has multiple guilds in every province. I mean, I get it. They don't want to make the game the size of Daggerfall, but even Morrowind, they had the Fighters Guild that had multiple locations. Like, like a organization as big as them should have. It makes sense. But let's also look. They don't have banking. Daggerfall had banking. Gold had weight. And if you wanted to lose some of that weight, you basically deposit all your gold and take out a letter of credit. That would be just paper, and you could buy anything you want with it. You could also buy a ship. You can buy a house. You had the quests were timed, so it made you more, and it gave you enough time to maybe go around town, buy a couple things, sleep for a day or two, and then head off and go to whatever dungeon you had to kill a certain enemy in. It had levitating. It had a really extensive class system where you could make a custom class and you could select your skills and you could select your reputations with certain groups. Like, for example, you have to have a net reputation overall of 0. So let's say you raise your reputation with a nobles by like 2 points. Then you have to put it down, let's say peasants 1 point, the underworld 1 point. And you had advantages and disadvantages like critical weaknesses, immunity to. You had it was just Daggerfall in general was the peak of the Elder Scrolls series in terms of complexity, and ever since then they've gotten less and less complex to the point where Fallout 4, or the point where Skyrim is not even really an RPG, and I think the next Elder Scrolls game is going to try to appeal to like 8-year-olds, or they're going to try to appeal to that audience. I mean, my brother, he's a Zoomer and he can't even play Fallout 3, so I think they're going to have to go get even worse than they are right now.
Yeah, I largely agree with you on the video games aspect of media getting dumbed down. AAA titles now, none of them are very thought-provoking or good at all. Most AAA titles abandon having a story or campaign at all. I mean, like the latest Call of Duty game, for example, it does not include a campaign. It's only multiplayer aspects, and it's just kind of the same of what we've had, except for slightly different in some aspects. I think only the really place you're finding any thought-provoking or really big media right now is indie games. But even then, indie games suffer from the early access type shit where they release it before they're even close to done, before even a beta version is done. And then they keep it in early access always to build some fake hype and to get people's money and then never finish the game.
So in the stream right now, I'm gonna be doing a little I'm gonna be showing in the stream. Just click on the link and you'll see it. Daggerfall and just how complex the game is just by playing it. I'm warning you the Unity version, so it's not nearly. It looks a lot better. Here we go. Wait. Oh, not so. Mute yourself. Yeah, you were just having... It sounded like a plane was going off or something. You're like you were in a helicopter. It's loading. Hopefully it works. Let's see. Display capture. There we go. This is going to take
Okay, are we better? Because what... And yeah, I know
Yes.
it sounds like in my headphones a piston plane's going off.
Yeah, okay, Boomer Tech Cruise, this application takes a bit to load. You can just talk about shit while I'm waiting for it to load up.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Actually, today, for my sociology class, I had to, because I'm taking sociology because I just want the credits. But if you ever want to be annoyed by the left's inane arguments, take a sociology class and just try to stay awake. But in our sociology class, we've been talking about media, and our teacher, in her wonderful, leftism, has always been coming out against how women are portrayed in media. And she showed us this one woman named Jean Kilbourne, who has been an activist in the feminist movement for a long time. She has a series called Killing Us Softly, where she tries to analyze women and advertisements, and her only evidence is pulling up ads that she cherry picks from magazines.
Okay, Boomer Tickers, here we go. This is just showing you how much we've regressed. You see the game right now on the live stream on YouTube?
1 second, let me pull it up again.
So I'm gonna be heading outside. I'm heading outside right now, and I'm gonna be showing you just. Let's see. Here we go. So the map, first of all, every single dot is a location. And what's cool about Daggerfall is that you can stay in the same region and have infinite things to do, because each region feels like, an actual province. The game feels big. Now, I'm going to be using a spell called, Levitate, and I think you already know what it's going to do by the name alone. But, here we go. Levitating. And look, I'm literally flying around here, jumping on buildings and whatnot. The actual map itself of the town, this is a medium-sized town, and literally, it's this big. It has dozens of stores. It feels like an actual town. It doesn't feel like a village. And if you look at the spells...
Oh, yeah.
Here
Oh,
we go.
Lord.
Here we go. Let's choose Fireball. Fireball. God's Fire. So I'm going to turn on God mode. Here we go. And here we go. Yeah, so the spells, you can keep recasting it over and over, and you can have weapons that heal you. Let's see, here we go. Clothing and Mist. Let's look at let's see. Force Lightning. Or not Force Lightning, just joking. Palpatine pill. Lightning. Or should I do lightning? Should I do jumping? What should I do?
I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't played Daggerfall in forever, so.
Alright, here we go.
It's been a very, very long
time.
time.
When I jump, I can jump over buildings. I'm literally you can't do this in Skyrim. Also, let's look. You can. There's an option that lets you go on a ship. I don't own the ship right now, but you can basically get a loan from a bank or have enough money saved up, enough gold, and buy a ship and sail around in it. You can store your items in it.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds kind of fun.
Yeah, and I think that partly highlights
Also, good lord, you have
the priorities of games. The priority of games has become more, let's do more realism, let's show off what the engine can do, instead of, let's just make a fun game. Let's just make a game that is enjoyable, that, says something, that has, a nice story.
And what I don't get is why critics these days judge if a game is good or not based on if it teaches people a lesson about politics. Like, not everything is about contemporary politics.
But
I especially hate video games inserting modern political messages.
I mean, there's some
because it takes me out of it.
In a World War I or II game.
There's some games that do it well, like BioShock. They had some pretty thought-provoking content in it, but most games that try to do that fail. Let's look at another example, the Fallout series. Literally, Fallout New Vegas, we still have... It's made by Obsidian. We all know that. It's compared to Fallout 4, Fallout 3, or any Bethesda game released after Morrowind. We still have people on Reddit discussing which faction is the best for the Wasteland. And, you have Caesar quoting, or talking about Hegel, and, how Hegel determined truth. You have, it doesn't get really doesn't get philosophical outside of Caesar, but you have games nowadays don't want to they don't intend to be talked about years later. They want you to buy the game, and then you'll start talking about it, then the next game comes out, then you forget about it. Games aren't permanent. They don't last long. They don't have a legacy.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Most games do not have much of a legacy that come out now. You'll forget about it, in a few months from now, and never really talk about it or touch it again.
I mean, not every game has to be thought-provoking genius shit, but there's some times when I want to play a game that's just mindless fun. Like Doom is a really good example of that. But there are games like you look at EA. EA is one of the best examples of this. They canceled a shit ton of games for the Star Wars universe. They were making an open world Star Wars RPG, and they canceled it because they said it was kids wouldn't be able to enjoy, or they wouldn't be able to understand it. And it was an M-rated. It was an M-rated game. It's definitely not M for complexity. It's M for the violence within it. And they're canceling it because even though kids buy M-rated games, kids don't play games that only a 17-year-old could understand. They don't play games that are complicated. It's not M for will you be able to understand this and actually play it. It's M for does this game show titties? Stuff like that.
Yeah. And I'm not, but being a member of the computer wargaming community for a while now, plenty of immature people on, Hearts of Iron multiplayer, Europa Universalis multiplayer. I've met someone on a wargaming forum, and they wanted to play War in the East with me. And toxic people.
Well, yeah, Hearts of Iron.
It is terrible.
It's not terrible. It's not terrible. Okay, multiplayer.
It's a good game. The multiplayer is terrible.
Well, EU4's multiplayer is even worse. It's not really good as a multiplayer game. Unless the thing is, if you're not usually when I play multiplayer for EU4, unless you're trying to accomplish a certain goal, I don't know, I'll play as Poland, I'll play as Hungary, I'll play as Byzantium, and I'll play as Austria, and let's take down the Ottomans. Unless you have a singular goal that everyone's looking for, the game pauses constantly, and you have to run at a speed that can't really do much. It'll take a lot longer. I think, although EU4, you rarely see games like EU4 nowadays that are just so chock full of content, and especially EU4 should be they should make an educational version of it for school children. They really should. It would be great.
Oh yes, they actually did something with Hearts of Iron 2, and they used that to model diplomacy. One school did that. I remember reading.
All right, so it looks like it's been 80 minutes. All right, so I guess we can end it here. We aren't
perfect timing for me. We
haven't been too edgy. We haven't really said anything that's career compromising. Nope. But I'm going to just in case we have, I'm going to look through it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to leave it up for a day or two, and then I'm going to unlist it.
So next week, same time.
We may not be next week, but usually we do it on the weekends.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. This is the Right Cast signing out.